Hello friends, welcome to Let Us Go. Today we will study about macros in C. Now, before jumping to the definition of macros, let us consider a situation where we have to swap two numbers. Now, for swapping two numbers, our program will look like this. H Suppose we want to swap two numbers. First one is 78 and other one is 45. Now for swapping two numbers, I am using a technique of XOR. Now this technique might be new for you. We will study it deeply in our next tutorials. X is equal to X XOR Y is equal to X XOR Y. Now X is equal to X XOR Y. Now let us print the values of X and Y. X is equal to percentage D, Y is equal to percentage D, and here we will pass X and Y. Let us print the values, original values, so that we can compare the swapped one values. Let us compile. Before the swapping of program, before these swapping three lines, 78 was initialized to X and 45 was initialized to Y. Now after these three lines, 45 now initialized to Y instead of 45 is initialized to X instead of Y, and 78 is initialized to Y instead of X. Now let us consider a situation where we are having to swap two numbers frequently in our program. Then we will have to write these three lines frequently in our program. Now if I have an option that if I can write a name instead of writing these three lines, my code will be shorter and it will be easier to me, because there might be some human error while writing these three lines again and again. I can just write a simple name or anything like that. Now if I name these three lines swap. Now in the whole program, if I need to swap two numbers, then I'll just write this name swap and my two numbers will be swapped. Now let us write macro for that. Since macro is a preprocessor directory, it will always start with hash and define macro name. Macro name is swap, as you want to give the name swap to these three lines. Now to swap, we have to pass two numbers. Let us say A and B, not A and B, just X and Y. Now let us copy these three lines, copy, paste. Now we remember that for writing macro in multiple lines, we have to end the lines excluding the last line, which is this here. We have to end that line by backslash. Now here instead of writing these three lines, if I write swap and passes y, x and y. Now again run this whole code. Now our output is same as before, because here swap x and y, this swap x and y is replaced by these three lines. Now in the program, every time if preprocessor finds this swap token, it replaces that statement with these three lines. Output is same as we getting before. 78 initialized to x before and after 78 to y. 45 to y before and after x is initialized 45. Now let us consider an official definition of macro. A macro is a fragment of code which has been given a name, and whenever the name used is used in the program, it is replaced by the content of the macro. Now let us review our example again. Macro is a fragment of code which is given a name. Now macro is a fragment of code. These line is a fragment of code is given a name swap, and whenever the name is used, and whenever the name is used here swap in the program, it is replaced by these three lines, which is the content of the swap macro named swap. Now every time if name of macro is encountered in a program, that particular statement will be replaced by the content of macro. Now at that point we knows what is macro and how to define macro and how macro works. Now let us jump to some interesting facts about macros. Our first interesting fact is, when we define a macro using define for a constant, the preprocessor produces a C program where the defined constant is searched and matching token are replaced with the given expression. Now let us have an example for this. Suppose we are defining swap, we are defining a number. Define number is, let us say, 45. Now printf number is percentage d. Here we call number, which is the name of the macro. Now if I run this program, number is printed is equal to 45. Now as we see in our fact that here you can see this one, when we use define for a constant, here define is using for constant which is 45, the preprocessor which calls program before any of the software. This is preprocessor is the first software which acts on a program, produces a C program. It will produce a C program where that program will search for the name of that macro, and that name of that macro will be replaced by its constant value, as it is being done here. Number is equal to 41. Now let us come to our next fact, which is macro can take function like argument. The arguments are not checked for data type. As we first saw while swapping two numbers, we were passing two numbers x and y. It is passing like function. As you saw here, the macro can take function like argument. Now argument are not checked for data types. Now let us have an example for that particular case also. Let us consider a macro define increment, which is going to increase value of x once. Now let us take a character pointer ptr holding address of string, let us code. Now if I print wait a sec please, here percentage s comma increment ptr. Now here ptr is a character. Let us take an integer 90, call the same macro expression dx. Now let us run this program. First close the terminal. Now let us go. First you have to note that we did pass ptr and x. ptr is a character pointer and x is an integer variable. So as we saw, the arguments are not checked for data types and we are getting an output. Now let us consider our third fact. Macro arguments are not evaluated for expression, macro expression. Macro arguments are not evaluated for macro expression. Let us have an example for this also. Suppose we want to multiply two numbers. For multiplying two numbers, we have two numbers. We must have to pass two numbers and A multiply B. Now to multiply percentage d multi 2 plus 3 multiply 3 plus 5. Now here you must have thinking that answer of this multiplication will be 3 plus 5 into 5 plus 3 8 40, but this is not true. Story is somewhat different. Now we had called multi and passed 2 plus 3 into 3 plus 5. Now sorry, not into comma, 2 plus 3 3 plus 5. Now this whole statement will be replaced by the content of this macro A into B. What is A here? A is 2 plus 3 and B is 3 plus 5. Now answer of this expression will be first 3 into 3, 9, 2 plus 9 plus 5, which is 16 here. But we were expecting 2 plus 5 into 8, 40. So the macro arguments are not evaluated before expression, macro expression. Before macro expression, arguments were not evaluated. Like 2 plus 3 was not assigned to A, or 3 plus 4, that is 8, was not assigned to B. 2 plus 3 was replaced by A and 3 plus 5 was replaced by B. Now let us compile this program. Our answer is 16. Now let us jump to our next interesting fact, which is token passed to macro can be concatenated using operator double hash, which is known as token pasting operator. Now if I replace this star with double hash is here, and let us run this code. Now here what happened here was 2 plus 3 was replaced by A hash hash, and B was replaced by 3 plus 5. Now because of hash hash, which is token pasting operator, this expression was converted to 2 plus 33 plus 5. Now it is 40. 35 plus 5, 33 plus 5, 48 plus 2, 40. So that's how token pasting operator works. Let us consider our next interesting fact, which is a token passed to a macro can be converted to a string literal by using hash before it. By just placing hash before anything, we can convert it to a string. Now let us consider a simple example for that. Also we are getting get anything as argument, and we are converting is the, a to string by placing hash before it. Now while calling that macro get, now we are passing here, let us now please be noted here, latest code is not a string. So when we pass latest code, this expression will first convert it to hash latest code, and since hash is preceded by latest code will be converted to a string, and string will be printed as our output. Let us first consider close the terminal. Latest code. I hope you are with me. Now our next fact is macro can be written in multiple line using backslash. The last line does not need to have backslash. Our first example, you might have remember that first example of swapping two numbers. We had write multiple lines by placing backslash at each line except that last line in the macro of swapping two numbers. So I think you are getting this fact also. Now let us consider our seventh fact. Macro also uses its own if else by if defining and if not defining. I hope you are getting. In function, let me explain again. In functions, we uses if and else conditions. Now in macros, if replaces if defined and else if not defined. So let us take example for this also. First we would define constant macro named name 78. Now if defined, it will check whether that name of that macro is defined or not. Since it is a preprocessor directory, we must proceed with hash. If defined name, it will check whether name is defined or not. If name is defined, then print value of name will be name. If name is not defined, then print name is not defined. Now let us compile a program. Now since we defined name, that means this expression is true and this expression gives output name is equal to 78. Now let us not define name. Let us comment this one. Now while compiling this program, name is not defined with printed because this statement is not true here and this statement is true. Now let us jump to our next fact, which is quite easy. We are having some standard macros defined such as file, date, time and line. Take an example of this also. We will study it quickly. Now printf. First we will print about file and then print about file, which is current file. Then current file, it must be percentage s and then underscore underscore, two underscores, capital file and then again two underscores. Copy this line of code, then current date, capital date, date, current time, capital time, must be capital, and then line number. It must be D since it is an integer, capital line. Then 0. Now run this program. What we are having? File gives current directory in which we are having our code. This one. This date gives us current date, time, current time, and this line is line number at which that line is used. Now here line was used in this 7th line and line number is printed as 7. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe.